There had been a terrible mining accident, and as the rescue workers were preparing to go down into the mine, one of the television reporters asked one of the rescue workers, "Are you going down? Don't you realize how dangerous this is? There could be poisonous gas there. There could be another rock slide, and you're going down." And the rescue worker said, "I am going down. There may be yet 3 living men in that mine. I'm going down." The gospel today is the scene of the Annunciation, when the angel Gabriel came to Mary and asked her to be the mother of God's Son. This is the scene that is depicted in the very first of our stained glass windows here in church. And Mary agreed. "Behold, the handmaid of the Lord, let it be done to me just as you say." And at that moment, the eternal Son of God came down, and by the power of the Holy Spirit was conceived in the womb of the Virgin Mary and became man. I can imagine one of the angels in heaven, before this conception of Jesus in the womb of Mary, saying to the Son of God, "You're really going down to that world that's so full of darkness, to that world that is so full of people that will not listen to you, to that world where some of them will kill you. You're going down." And the Son of God says, "Yes, I am going down." And because he came down and became flesh and was born for us in Bethlehem, our world has been affected ever since. He brings us light in this world of darkness. He comes to dispel the darkness of sin and death. That's the reason this time of year, the darkest season of the year in our hemisphere, that at Christmas time we light up our homes, inside and out, as a symbol of Christ our light. He was not conquered by darkness. He vanquished the darkness of sin and death. He's brought light to our world. An artist was not quite finished with the painting of a winter scene. There was a mountain and evergreens covered with snow and a house that was dark. But when she was finishing that painting, she put her brush in the yellow paint and painted a candle in the window of that house. And it gave the effect that that light from that candle had brought a beautiful glow to that whole surrounding scene. We may think that the light that we bring to others, the light of Christ, is so small and of so little consequence. But I remind you of that motto of the Christophers: better to light one candle than to curse the darkness. The light that we bring to someone who is discouraged or worried or troubled or anxious or despairing can be the very light of Christ that they need, that warms them with a sense of His presence. Christ brings light to our world. He also brings hope to our world. Most of us, I think, feel that we're pretty small in terms of our world. We're one voice among so many. Do we even count? And yet, before God, every single one of us has significance. Every one of us has purpose and meaning and gives God delight in his eyes. He raises the humble to high places. He gives us hope. Some years ago, when I was stationed downtown at St. John's Cathedral, a letter arrived one day from an inmate at the Ohio State Reformatory in Mansfield. And that person was asking, would there be someone at the cathedral that would be willing to correspond with him? And so I volunteered. The prisoner's name was Frank. We wrote back and forth over the years that he was there. I went a number of times to visit with him face to face. And I have a letter in my file from Frank that was written to me on December the 31st, 1983, 25 years ago. And this is what Frank wrote me from prison. Dear Father, it was extremely cold here for Christmas. The cells behind me have 2 broken windows, and when the cold air blows in, it's almost like being outside. We were allowed to cover the bars with newspaper, which makes the cell a little cozier and helps to keep the wind out, but not the cold. At Christmas Eve Mass, Father told the story of Jesus being born in a stable just adequate enough to keep the wind out. With that message in mind, Christmas with my cellmate was a fine day. We had good conversation and tasty goodies left by my father in my Christmas food package. Nothing can keep the spirit of Christmas out of a person's heart but the person himself. And for me, I chose to accept the peace that God offered. Well, I'm going to close for now. I'm looking forward to when we're next able to visit again. Thank you for being a friend. Love, Frank. Even in prison, he knew that he was included in the Christmas story and Christmas message. He identified with the cold of that stable in Bethlehem on that winter's night and felt very much a part of that story by his own circumstances. And he had a pretty good Christmas. God raises the humble to high places. Christ has come to give us light and to give us hope. And he also gives us his grace, his merciful grace that forgives us, that includes us, that makes us whole. A woman tells a story on herself. She'd wandered into a cathedral looking for peace. She felt very estranged from God. She'd not been faithful to God for years. Although God was very near her, she didn't feel the closeness. She'd led a life that to a great degree she was not proud of. In fact, she was ashamed of. But as she went into that cathedral, she writes that she looked first at the stained glass windows, and they sparked some childhood memories that were very pleasant. And she went over to the manger scene, and she looked at the Christmas crib, and she saw the baby